I'm Austin.
I'm Quintin.
And this is XMAS Movies.
The podcast where we talk about Christmas classics that aren't exactly classics.
Fill in with your imagination what you think Quintin is drinking right now.
Oh, fuck me. I just chugged an entire monster.
That was the entire can. Okay.
Listen to this. That is an empty can.
That is very empty, yes.
Because I'm very tired.
Quintin has moved on to the Dr. Pepper.
I have an entire 12-pack of Dr. Pepper, cherry, zero sugar, 2 more monsters, and water.
As we make this fairly evident, we record multiple episodes in a day.
And today we're talking about The Night Before,
Which is a Seth Rogen stoner comedy set at Christmas where Seth Rogen and Anthony Mackie spend their Christmas Eve with Joseph Gordon-Levitt getting completely shit-faced because Joseph Gordon-Levitt's parents died when he was in college, and it's kind of like all of them are kind of fuck-ups in very different ways, and yeah, it's a Seth Rogen stoner comedy.
Yeah. Also, I'm realizing that Austin's trying to get out of it using the edit, but Austin cannot remember the name of Joseph Gordon-Levitt ever,
yeah,
and
yeah.
I'm not letting you get
yeah.
out of this.
No, yeah.
We were watching it, and you were kind of like, you weren't vibing too hard, and I was like, you gotta have no expectations, and then by the end of it, I was like, I had way too high of expectations for this movie.
My personal opinion of Seth Rogen's like comedies is like they're not for me. Like I just don't like that kind of humor in like kind of like stoner humor, and like it's just not the kind of movie that I generally vibe with. So going into this movie, I generally try to go into this movies with no expectations, but like that's really hard because I like Seth Rogen as a person, and I think he's very talented and a very creative person, but like it's just his flavor and brand of comedy is just something that's not for me, which is a very weird spot to be in.
No, that makes sense. I think this is like one of his weaker movies because I think with a lot of his movies, the story really lends itself to the style of storytelling that he and his buddies do, which is they have like the loose dramatic beats kind of written and then they just kind of improvise everything else. And I think for other movies that works really well. For this one, it makes it feel really messy in places where it shouldn't and really kind of lost. And I think we were talking about this, and a movie that does this kind of storyline, like it's trying to tell a different kind of story.
Yeah.
But we were talking about it, and it's not a Christmas movie, but World's End.
Yeah.
By Edgar Wright. I think it does that sort of like, oh, this guy is a fuck up. We're trying to get him to grow up kind of thing. It does it like a little bit better, but they are very different movies.
No. Yeah.
And I think with this movie, it's trying. I think it's more so about them all kind of growing up, but because I hate the format of this because like I feel like I end up shitting on things I actually kind of enjoy because I did enjoy this movie. Like I had a fun time, but like I think the way that this movie is kind of structured with a lot of it being improvised, you don't feel any of the arcs that these characters go through, except I would say Seth Rogen's character, whose name is Isaac. I know you can't remember the name.
Yeah,
I remember the name.
For these kinds of movies, I very rarely focus on what the actual characters' names are, and I just go with the actors' names because they're effectively playing themselves.
I'm realizing I only know the main 3, and I don't know anyone else's names.
Yep.
Except
Mr. Green.
Mr. Green.
That's the only one I know.
We'll get into him.
Yeah, Mr. Green's great.
Seth Rogen's character Isaac, his story about like not feeling prepared to be a father, I felt was the one that like got a lot of resolution. It felt like more of a complete arc, but I do know that that's kind of something Seth Rogen's done before. Like his kind of one of his breakout films was Knocked Up, which is kind of that same sort of plot line, and I've heard, and I like was like talking to people about it, and they were like, "Oh yeah, that sounds like Knocked Up," and I was like, "Oh,
I've never heard of Knocked Up."
Really?
I don't know. As much as I respect Seth Rogen, I don't like know shit about him.
Okay, that's fair.
I don't know anything about the guy.
I think something we got into. We actually, I don't know if we talked about this before, but our first episode we entirely re-recorded because we got really into the weeds about it is a movie and not how it functions as a Christmas movie, and I think we need to focus on that. What do you think? How do you think this does as a Christmas movie?
I think it does pretty well, actually. Like, the thing is, it's like what it has and like what it is, all of the themes that it is trying to present are really cool and interesting themes. It's like the nature of growing up but still holding on to what made you you. Those are things that are very like heavily related to Christmas, and all of the all the characters are like somewhat endearing at the very least, but like despite being assholes like 90% of the time.
It's because it's funny. It's funny when they say the mean thing to their friends.
Yeah. I will say, like, it
sounded so third grader of me. I sounded like a third grader there for a second.
You devolved into sixth grade Quintin for a second. You devolved into middle school Quintin.
No, middle school Quintin was an asshole. You're talking about assholes? God.
No, yeah. So yeah, the movie, like, it has like these like what the story that it's trying to tell on paper is a really good Christmas story. What the problem with it is honestly the improv. Because a lot of it has to do, like, it's trying to tell these very endearing moments, and anytime the dramatic moments come up, they're very good, but they're kind of undercut by the very shotgun nature of the comedy.
Yeah, and I think one of the reasons for me, the scenes revolving around Isaac's, Seth Rogen's, like, fatherhood work really well is because I think the comedy and like the more dramatic and emotional beats marry really well, because I think Seth Rogen and Gillian Bell have really good comedic chemistry, and I think they work really, really well together.
I also think Seth Rogen's obviously Seth Rogen is very clearly way more used to this kind of story because he wrote the damn thing.
Yeah.
And like he's written other stoner comedies like this before. So like I think Anthony Mackie and Joseph Gordon-Levitt are both very good, but I think the way that both of like their scenes, like individually, like the comedy and the drama are both like individually very good, but they aren't able to get the connection in the same way that Seth Rogen's able to. I'd say Joseph Gordon-Levitt does a better job than Anthony Mackie.
I think for me, I think just Anthony Mackie's storyline is a bit less developed. I think like it delves into some interesting topics about like kind of like living up to like expectations, which is kind of like what all of their storylines are. But I agree with you there.
But it feels like Anthony Mackie's story is the only one that doesn't really get a very good big because you get like with like he's a football star. That's the only reason he's a football star is because he's taking steroids. That storyline and at the end of it he just quits. He just quits. And what would have been interesting is like if that happened like somewhere in the middle of the movie and like he was able to kind of like reconnect with his mother or something like that. And they imply that happens, but they don't explore it.
Which, okay, I've realized something. I was thinking back on like shit I've said about the other movies on this podcast, and that's excusing flaws of movies by saying like, oh, it's like Christmas because Christmas is never perfect.
No, yeah.
But that is like that's what it feels like, and I like that's a bad way to look at movies.
Seems like a cop-out.
It seems like a cop-out, but we're talking about Christmas movies, which is a very different type of film.
Yeah.
It feels less like a cheat for me, but like, yeah, I think I wish that they had chosen, I wish that they had either written a lot more or written a lot less, personally. Does that make sense? I think they should have. There are other similar Christmas movies I've seen where they focus entirely on the comedy and that works really, really well.
Yeah.
Or they lighten up on the comedy and try to just go more for the dramatic beats.
Because like this film, so what this film has is a pretty even mix of comedy and drama, which is not usually is hilariously not usually a very good combination, because when you're in a comedy movie, there have to be little bits of drama or else there are no stakes. And those little bits of drama don't happen that often and therefore hit harder. But with full-on drama movies, obviously the drama is all completely written. You don't have to play around with it in the edit. You already have your story. So like it's harder to try and get a full even balance in comedy and drama without kind of detracting from one or the other.
No, exactly, because what ends up happening here is like all of like the dramatic moments give the story a sense of momentum, and then the comedy makes it feel like it's kind of meandering sometimes. And there are a few really great moments that make that like I think really work, because it's picking and choosing those moments of levity to make the drama hit all the harder. And the one like
I think the one character that we can talk about that makes this that I think proves that point is Mr. Green. Hi, we're here. But like Mr. Green pops up kind of like every like once in a while, kind of like as this kind of like weird like kind of like this ghost, the kind of like the ghosts from Christmas Carol kind of thing, where he like kind of gives each person their own like little epiphany.
Yeah, he hands them a joint and he's like, "This shit will make you see into the future." And also like it was so out of nowhere to see just like they're like, "Oh man, this drug dealer from high school, that's his car. We got to get into his car to buy some weed." And then they get in, they turn, and it's fucking Michael Shannon in like a beanie.
Yeah.
And he's like, "What's up, man?" It's so weird.
Yeah, it's just
But I really love those moments with him, and I think if they had that be the main source
I feel like that
of like absurdity, I think it would have worked a little bit better.
The thing is, there's a lot of other absurd humor in this as
Which
well.
I think like people try to go really hard on the absurdity and like play that up for Christmas films, because like Christmas films are like a lot of the times they want them to be like big, like the whole Nutcracker Ball sequence, like that feels really absurd, and I
like that scene a little better than the rest. I think that's one of the better scenes in the movie. But it's also related to Mr. Green because he's the one running it.
I mean, like, I think that scene works well on its own, but I'm like thinking about this more and more, and I think in order for this to work as a movie, I think it needed to have those moments with Mr. Green be the main source of like absurdity, and like have everything else be dramatic, or like it's like what we're saying, have like almost the entire movie be comedic with like moments of drama, because I think it's just like a weird mix, and I think it falls into it feeling just kind of like I was saying before, meandering, and like there are really amazing moments and like really heartwarming moments where they kind of marry a little bit of drama and emotion with a little bit of comedy, like when they start singing at the baby at the end. That was one of my favorite moments in the movie, because it's like a very stupid and kind of absurd thing, but it's like in a very heartwarming way. And I think moments like that work amazingly well, because it is marrying an emotional beat with comedy in a very successful way. Yeah. And I think, God, this is the most analytical we've gotten on this podcast, and it's about the night before.
Yeah, it's a movie that neither of us have seen. We're getting into the movies that neither of us have seen before, which is I'm assuming where we're going to be the most analytical.
But like this is the movie that I thought I would have the least to say about.
Yeah, no, this is definitely, there's a lot to talk about. There's a surprising amount to talk about with this movie. But like, all honesty, I think it is if we're getting down like to it, I think it's a pretty good Christmas movie.
I scratch what I said before. This is the area where I feel like I have very little to say. I think I have a lot to say in terms of like how it functions as a movie, but in terms of how it functions as a Christmas movie, I'm not so sure. I mean, like, yeah, it is undeniably a Christmas movie. It's about like a very real thing, which is like pushing these issues that people face, like having those issues come up at the holiday, because the holidays just kind of exacerbate everything, and then like people have to like push through and resolve those tensions and those issues during the holidays. That's what everyone kind of goes through, and like that is a very Christmassy thing, and like because of that, I think it's a Christmas movie, and kind of an interesting one too, because I think that's a theme that isn't explored a lot in like Christmas classics.
Yeah.
I think we were talking about it with Home Alone 2, but like kind of Christmas Vacation kind of does that a little bit, but this it's less about like everyone kind of being at each other's throats, and this time it's more about like everyone is dealing with these
with
little
their own
problems,
shit,
and like the holidays are just making everything worse.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, they all push through it and they like come together because it's the holidays, and like that's a really amazing thing, and I think because of that, it's I think that makes it a really interesting Christmas movie. I think, like what we were saying before, it falters a little bit in places, but like there are moments like at the end when they're singing and rapping at the baby in the crib that make me like just make my heart all warm and fuzzy, and those moments make me say it's a good. I would say it is a good Christmas movie. I think. Well, where do you think it ranks in terms of the movies that we watched prior to this on the podcast?
Considering that I have kind of like, I think we're both coming up with our own lists here, but like, I think like, I would say that this is I think the quote best Christmas movie that we've seen so far, like as a Christmas movie.
Oh God, yeah. I think that Iron Man 3 is really great. I think Iron Man 3 is a better movie.
Oh yeah,
but I think in terms of Christmas, I think this is just a better Christmas movie.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would watch it every year because it depends on who I'm watching it with. If I was watching it with my friends, and if I was watching it, I think with the way that Seth Rogen works, I think a lot of people are like, oh, it's stoner comedies. It's made by stoners. But I think it also lends itself very well to being watched with that type of energy, like with friends, maybe not entirely sober. I think it would work a lot better like that. I think the twist with Mr. Green would blow some people's minds
if they were high.
Yeah.
If they were very high.
And I'm not, and honestly, not even inebriated. I'm using very loose terms, because I don't know who's gonna listen to this podcast. I don't want to be.
We're in Illinois.
We'll see what ends up in the edit. But I think just watching this with friends, like if it's like a late night and we're just like, let's watch a random ass Christmas movie.
Yeah,
I would put this on.
Yeah, I feel like like that. It's not like other Christmas classics that are more in franchise where I'd watch it every year, but it's definitely one that I would be 100% happy to watch.
Yeah, I think like the comedy works really well, so like you can kind of turn it on and like you can talk over it, which I think is something that people don't realize about A Christmas Story, is that it's an amazing movie to have in the background. I think this works really well for that because you can have it on the background, like there's some funny improv going on, and then you like pay attention for the dramatic bits, and I think in that sense, if you have it like that, I think it works amazingly well.
I think
This is what I would put on at like a Christmas party with friends. This is this is like the like Friends holiday party version of A Christmas Story.
Yeah.
That's my opinion. But yeah, I think it's a good Christmas movie. I think it's like we said, it's the most Christmassy movie we've watched so far.
I'm Austin.
I'm Quintin. Next time we're gonna be talking about Jingle All the Way.
Yeah.
Yay. Have you seen Jingle All the Way?
I am aware of its existence and I'm excited.
I just watched Jingle All the Way all the time.
This will be fun.
This will be really fun. Goodbye. Happy holidays.